Hello, friends. Welcome back to Born to Be All of Me, the podcast. My name is Amber Sousa. I am your host. And today I am so excited to welcome the incredible Sharon Land, author of The Healer's Journey, also the incredible woman who wrote the foreword to my book, Born to Be All of Me, moving out of self-abandonment into authentic embodiment. She's going to be joining us any second. I can't wait to share her with you. She is absolutely magical. I had the pleasure of being introduced to her through our mutual publisher, Samantha Joy of Land and Hale Press. Shout out to Land and Hale. And as soon as I was introduced to her, I realized that we speak the same language. And we have a very similar mission to help women remember the truth of who they are and to powerfully step into the version of who they were born to be. And I can't wait to talk to her more about how she does this through her healing modalities. She recently did a workshop called The Empowered Woman. I have led workshops called The Embodied Woman. So we are very similar in wanting to support women to be their most embodied, empowered selves. And she's in New Jersey. So she led this workshop called The Empowered Woman. And part of it was somatic movement, which y'all know I'm a big fan of. She's been dancing lately. She's been doing partner dancing. So I'm excited to hear about that, how that's been helping her feel more empowered and embodied. But the workshop that she led, she also included some ancient storytelling. So I'm excited to hear more about that. I have a feeling that I know a little bit about what she's going to be talking about. The divine feminine. Here she is. I'm so excited. Hello, hello, Sharon. Coming on, coming on. I see your beautiful picture. There you are.
It's not letting me unmute and do my thing. So here we go.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. I was just doing a little intro before you came on, kind of talking a little bit about how we met. I mean, this is the first time that we've actually seen, our faces.
I know.
Seeing your face
so great
in person. Oh, thank you for coming on. I'm so excited.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that you asked me, and I'm thrilled that you're starting this. So this is so good.
Thank you.
So good.
I want to read your bio, and then I wanted to share a little bit of the foreword that you wrote for my book, because I think it's really telling about how we have a pretty similar mission to support women. I was telling my audience before you came on that you just led a workshop this past Friday called The Empowered Woman. And I have led quite a few workshops called The Embodied Woman. So clearly we're all about helping women feel empowered and embodied.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
So, well, I'm going to read your bio and then we can dive into all that good stuff.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Sharon Jean Land.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I do have a hard stop. I have a session at the top of the hour. So
all good.
Okay, good.
We will be mindful of the time for sure. Great. All right. So Sharon Jean Land is described by her clients as a spiritual Sherpa and soul guide. She is a licensed holistic psychotherapist, trauma specialist, entrepreneur, podcaster, speaker, and leadership coach who is passionate about global peace and promoting conscious leadership. Sharon is also the author of The Healer's Journey, Discover the Healer Within You. Sharon's healing process has a proven track record of helping people heal things from the root cause. She knows firsthand what it's like to live a life of disease body, mind, spirit that prevented her from living a great, aligned life. Her final push to change and heal was when she had a stroke in 2004. Since then, she has healed from a long list of disease and illnesses that doctors said were a life sentence, and she has helped thousands of her clients to do the same. Using a blend of clinical, neuroscientific, divine spiritual wisdom, somatic polyvagal regulation, and quantum metaphysics, Sharon creates a healing experience that is as efficient as it is transformational and powerful. Yay! I love that every woman that I talk to, every woman that I connect with who is doing this work has a story of their own. And my story began, my spiritual awakening began because I woke up one day with severe and debilitating low back pain with, a newborn baby and a 2-year-old, and I couldn't even get off the floor. And that prompted my journey to discover what was going on, to get to the root cause, right? And so for you, 20 years ago, you had a stroke. And I'm guessing that probably that was a catalyst for you to discover how that even happened. I know for me, I was shocked. Like, I, at the time, co-owned a fitness studio. Like, that's what I did for a living, right? Like, I was a Pilates instructor, a fitness instructor. I ate well. I thought that I was healthy. I thought that I was doing all the right things. And yet my body was telling me the truth.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so interesting because I think that we're still, from the clinical lens, from the Western, lens, from the Western medicine lens, we still have so far to go and grow to really truly look at the individuals who are in front of us and understand that when there is such a huge disparity between how the individual is telling you that they're living and how it is that the end result is of that life, right, and how that's manifesting in their body, mind, heart, soul, spirit, right? And I was the same way. And I think we have such a prejudice when it comes to, somebody who is suffering from some sort of like dis-ease. And so when I talk about disease, it's really just some sort of conflict between the head and the heart, right? So the mind and the heart, which is the seat of our soul, and how there is a disconnect between that within ourselves and also in relationship to the world that we live in now. We have to realize, when we talk from a soul perspective, that our souls are far, far wiser and much, more seasoned than this physical lifetime that we're living right now. So if we're 50, that doesn't mean that we're only 50 years of experience. We are hundreds and thousands of years of experience within our heart, right? And that knowing sometimes screams at us because it is so the experience of the outer world is so different, right? And that's all by divine design. So I was the same way. I was very, very healthy. I ate well. I exercised all the time, but I felt like crap after I exercised. I was gaining weight and I couldn't figure out why. And all of my markers and numbers were going up when it came to any kind of health issue. Any kind of test that you would test me for, I tested positive for. So, like all my titers were always like super high, right? So doctors would then look at me and say, okay, well, you just need to exercise more, or you need to eat less, or whatever. And I barely ate. If anything, I underate, right? Because I was following the medical model of, if you're gaining weight, that means it's too many calories in, right? So, and my whole life, I had learned how to do with less. I was an expert on do with less, right? And the end result was also worse health, less joy, less thriving, less life. It was more survival, right? So so many people, I believe, and through my own experience in my own practice, right? So many people are doing the right things.
Yeah.
And they're suffering because they think there's something wrong with them because they're not getting the right results.
Yeah, absolutely. They're doing everything that the world told us would bring us fulfillment, would make us happy, would make us, experience success.
Yeah.
Right. I want to read your foreword if you don't mind, because I think it's so beautiful, and it's exactly what I want this conversation to be about and where it's heading, I can tell.
Yeah.
So you say the gap between your soul purpose, what your soul loves, and the amount of time you spend doing it will be the size of your suffering. It is a known fact that the farther away one lives from their true selves, the greater the distance they are living in ease, freedom, and health, life's example of harmony. However, in a world that emphasizes production over quality of life, consumption over expression, the task to achieve harmony has become our greatest challenge. This conflict shows up in our relationships, finances, physical and emotional health as disease. Yet harmony is what we are all here to experience and bring to the world. Yes, we are all being called to heal by the evidence of collective discord, division, and disease. As a studied mystic, licensed holistic psychotherapist, practitioner of root cause healing, transformational speaker, and the artist of my own healing from debilitating disease, CPTSD, I understand the healing process has more to do with deconstructing what isn't true in order to create space for a remembrance of the soul, the most divine expression of the mind of the universe, embodied wisdom and love. This journey of our healing is our gift to receive and give. I love that so much. And I feel like every single human that comes to me seeking my help it's because they are in search of remembering the truth of their soul, because they are experiencing that disconnect, right? Like they're doing all the things, like you said, right, that they thought would bring them fulfillment and joy and success, and yet they're experiencing this disconnect, this disharmony, and it shows up in different ways. For you, you had a stroke. For me, I had debilitating low back issues. For some other people, it's something else. But the disharmony shows up, and it is divinely designed to bring us closer to who we were born to be. So that is the name of my book, and that is the name of this podcast, is Born to Be All of Me. Every single human has come here to remember who they are, and to embody who they were born to be.
Yeah. And I love that you're doing this, which is why also, when you asked me to write the foreword of your book, I was like, we had already connected. We already kind of were witnesses to each other's work. And I was like, 100%, right? Like without question, because first of all, I think that we as women really have to get over a lot of our own wounding that maybe we haven't even experienced firsthand in this lifetime, but we are here to help to heal, which is realizing that the better you are and the more you thrive and the more you serve, the better we all are, right? And so any way that I can help and could have helped you to shine your light and to reach more people, I'm 100% down for, right? And I think that we've all probably experienced, and I'm still experiencing this, and which is mind-boggling to me at the age that I am and with where we are in the world, that there are still women who, and I feel it's really important to call this out, right? Because we can only really live well when we live in truth. And I believe that part of my experience in my life is that I was, the secret keeper of all of these, very, very unhealthy, dark, abusive, toxic things, right? And not just one person, but systems and, you know, families and administrations and businesses, and it just like goes on and on and on. And so for me, I think it's first and foremost, it's really important to set the tone that you know we're all in this mindset. We're all here to fight and to deconstruct this mindset that there's only a limited amount of good and of joy and of abundance and of finances and of love and of friendships and of intimate relationships and of you just of professional opportunities, of you name it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lie.
Yes.
So I love the fact that you're doing this, and I hope that your audience really feels the level of service that you're providing, and even more importantly, that they realize that it's not about only just like falling into one camp. It's about the fact that we've learned how to survive terrible circumstances. We've gone in our holes, we've built up our walls, we've lived in our towers, we've built our castles, we've built our fortresses to protect us, and we've figured out ways to be able to literally walk around in society with huge cement bricks and walls all around us, right?
Yeah.
And now that deconstruction process is really also about learning how to feel safe within yourself as you're relating and connecting to someone else, right? And that we can trust that in that development of the relationship, that we have the guidance to have it serve us all well, right?
Right.
And the other thing too that you said, which I think is an important kind of like reframe, is that the divine guidance, right? We are all divinely led. We are all divinely protected. We're divinely guided, right? We're being guarded, right? By the divine. But
it doesn't feel like that when we're having back pain and a stroke, right? Like in those moments, we're like, what is happening? I mean, it just feels like everything we've ever known is being pulled out from underneath us, and nothing makes sense, and it's terrifying and it's scary, right? So I would love to hear a little bit about your journey of how you went from like, what is going on? Why is this happening? To start to see it as divine orchestration and see it as a path to help support you in remembering who you really are.
Yeah. Well, I wish that I could say that it was foreign to me to be at that level of crisis. And it wasn't.
Okay.
So what I found is that in that level of crisis and tension, although it was very scary, right? Because when they said, I was in the emergency room and they said, you're having a stroke. And I didn't even understand. I didn't really understand and know what a stroke was. I mean, I was in my 30s, right? Like stroke was not, I wasn't reading about strokes.
Right.
I wasn't praying for one,
Right. No.
Not at all. And so when they said that to me, I was like, whoa, what is that? Right. But there is this deep connection inside of me, right? And there has been from the minute that I was born, right? In this physical body, there has been this deep, deep, deep knowing that when I get into those kinds of situations, that I can see that although under the best of intentions for someone to want to help, that the help that's being delivered is not what I need.
Mm.
And that's a very, very, very important question to ask your audience. I want you all to ask yourselves this, right? So, because we cancel ourselves out all of the time.
Yes.
We cancel ourselves out all of the time because we should, we think about, well, we don't know as much, right? Or whatever.
Right.
We know ourselves, right? And I had been placed in so many situations in my life until that point that I knew. So as soon as they said, you're having a stroke and we want to admit you and whatever, I said, I said a couple of curse words.
That's
and
appropriate.
and I said, no, I'm not. And it wasn't just to the doctor that was in front of me. It was to my life.
Mm-hmm.
I am not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I followed this enough. I trusted this enough to allow you to prove and provide to me that your way would work, and it's gotten me here.
Yeah.
No. So I don't recommend this, but I took myself out of there.
Yeah.
And I went home, and it was one of the scariest nights of my life, but it was also I'll never forget the feeling of home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Being with myself and literally nothing else. Nothing. And I had 2 young children. I had a baby who was at that point not even 1.
Okay.
And I had a 6-year-old.
Okay.
Right. And I made sure that they were taken care of. I had, everything was being taken care of as far as I was concerned, but I went inward and I started to go to what I had denied of myself for years and years and years, which was my own intuition. So my wounding met, right? So like I was born with gifts, and those created wounding because of where I was, the society and family, there was a huge, huge negative consequences for being different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was that what I needed in that moment,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So I just said, okay, I get it, right? I get it. And I literally started cell by cell visualizing myself going in with neutrality and saying, whatever needs to be emptied, empty it out now, right? And it was just kind of like a scan where I was like scanning and at the same time like deciding, okay, what's the next move, what's the next inspired action step that I need to make, so on and so forth. And that's when I planned my exit plan. I sold my house, I paid off all of I was like, I'm going in, I'm change my whole entire life, right? Because I was in corporate business and I traveled a lot, and I was very successful,
Quote
right?
unquote. Yes.
Quote unquote. I was married. I had 2 young children. I also had I was an entrepreneur. I had my own business. So I was juggling a lot, and I was all full of ego, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so like, I'm proud of the fact that, I make X amount of money and I have a fancy sports car, or European car and, whatever, right? So the divine actually had planted seeds so that when I got to that point, I felt a level of trust in myself that I hadn't up until that point, because part of being a woman, even though I was super successful, I always gave my power away to something else and someone else. So I realized I have to take my power back. I have to, you've shown me, right? You've shown me how you care, or how you don't have the capacity to give me the care that I need. And so I took it all into my own hands.
Mm.
So it was my younger daughter, she was not even one, right? And she's going to turn 21 this year. So
Wow.
it was 20 years ago. And so, I mean, it's decades, right? Decades later. And my own, marked healing, not just of a stroke, but also of chronic migraines, autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue syndrome. They were trying to diagnose me with lupus. I had high blood pressure, which my blood pressure is typically very low,
Mm-hmm.
high cholesterol, pre-diabetic. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Psoriasis on my body. I was 100 pounds overweight. But I was doing all the right things,
Yeah.
right?
Your soul's like, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to give you another situation that's going to bring you closer to your soul. Here's another, right?
Right.
I love what you're sharing, because this is the message. This is the message that all of us have been conditioned from the time we were born, and even before that,
Mhm.
to outsource our knowing and
Mhm.
not trust ourselves. So that's what happens. You arrive at a place where all of a sudden your soul's like, hey, guess what? It's time. It's time to start to trust yourself now. And that is the experience that I had also. I started meditating because I couldn't move. And I was used to relying on my body to help me manage all the stress in my life.
Yeah.
I would just
Yeah.
go to the gym, I'd get on the treadmill, and I would just run as fast as I could.
Mm.
And my soul was like, okay, so we're going to temporarily remove that option so that you
Yeah.
can really get to know who you are. And I had a similar experience where I was like, okay, like I knew that I had been trying to avoid that because it felt really scary. It feels really scary to say yes to your divine mission.
Yeah.
It feels too big sometimes. And so it's like, can I just be normal? Can I just like be a normal person and do like what other people are doing? And your soul's like, you could try, you could keep trying, right? But I had the experience that you had through meditation where I was reconnected with my truth and the voice of my soul. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
and I started to trust it more than I ever had.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, but it created some challenges in the relationships in my life because they were not used to me trusting myself. Like, wait a minute, who do you think you are, trusting yourself and making decisions from your inner knowing, right?
Yeah.
But that's been my path for the last 10 years, is just continuing to go within
Mhm.
and say yes to the next thing that feels like it's what my soul is guiding me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a wonderful path. And the beautiful thing is that you're always right on time. And whatever step you take is always divinely led.
Mm.
So I don't believe in the punitive aspect of spirit. So I believe that the knowing is there and the paths are there, and there are multiple ways that we can show up in the world and serve.
Mm-hmm.
So if the message that I'm getting from my soul is that I need to, you know, be an elephant trainer, right? But I'm not an elephant trainer. Like, I can still serve and create that same energetic frequency through other things
Mm-hmm.
in other ways, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's about, to me, it's about finding your just right spot in your just now moment. right? There's no finish line. There's no ultimate destination. There's now.
Yeah.
And being okay with the joy of the moment of now, and understanding, like, I'll give you an example. My friend, one of my good friends, Nicole Shaka, who I know you know, right?
Yes, I love Nicole.
We went to this 2-day immersive together, right? And I was, you know, I am I live of the spirit probably more than I do of the humanness, right? I honor my physical vessel, blah, blah, blah. But so we were in this thing, and so there were all of these, like, everybody had this like cookie cutter system that we had to walk through and do and like answer and satisfy and whatever. And I was not, I just wasn't, it wasn't tracking for me. It didn't resonate. I was going through all of these things, and I thought, okay, so we're like talking the first evening, and I said, it's not about the thing right now. It's not about this system that we're having to systemize ourselves with. I understand that, like, we're here for human things. So I'm not resistant to that. It's not about that. It's about the fact that I still have this thing that I need to wrestle, right? That exists inside of me. This system is just a way to be able to bring that out for me, right? And I said, but the funny thing is that in 5 minutes, right? Because time really doesn't exist. In 5 minutes, which means like whenever our bodies go back to the earth and our souls are bouncing around, right? We're going to look back and be like, remember how stressed we were about that thing, that like funnel system that we were supposed to be like filling out or whatever? Yeah. Does it really even matter? Right. So all of that to say that, no matter where and what our experiences are in the now moment, we're so much more than that. It's nothing is that important. And you would reference relationships, right? Like I believe relationships are very important. We're here for healthy and good relationships. We're physically wired to co-regulate, right? Like there's nothing, there's so much intersect between the divine and the physical, right? And but at the same time, it's the meaning that we create around it that causes our suffering, right? And so I've been married, I've been unmarried, right? And if I were to subscribe to the structures and the systems and the beliefs and the meaning that have been kind of like spoon fed to us about relationships and how relationships have become our defining aspect of personality, right? We even have relationship coaches that like they use their relationship, their marriage, their whatever as like the benchmark of what everybody is supposed to look like. And I chuckle to myself, not because I'm mocking them, but I'm like, yeah, but we don't know the rest of the story. And I hope that this relationship stays as long as it's meant to stay, and maybe forever, right? As forever as it can be in this lifetime. But like, it's not about the length. It's never about how far we go the distance. It's what we can gather and gain and enrich each other during the time that we have. Right. So I could know you 5 minutes. I could know you for 100 years. I am going to love the heck out of you for the time that we have together. Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the things that I have struggled with in my life is comparing my life and how it looks to other people's lives, because I've been married and divorced 2 times. And and so, and my parents have been together since they were 16, 17 years old, in love, happily married forever. Right. And I actually wrote about that in my book, like how we've been raised to measure our success by the length that we are in an experience. It doesn't matter. Like if you've been at a job for 30 years, like you're a success. Doesn't matter if you're totally miserable, right? If you've been married for 50 years, right? then you're a success. And I'm like, so based on that, I'm a massive failure. But I was like,
Right.
I can't accept that, because I'm with you. If our soul is actually here, or our spirit, or, you know, that aspect of us to experience and evolve, like
Mhm.
when we're complete with what we're meant to learn in that container, whether it's a relationship or a job, then it's time to move on to the next experience.
Mhm.
But that's really hard, because that's not what we've been taught.
It's not what we've been taught. And we also have the biophysical aspect, which wires us to stay with and be the and be
Yeah.
the same and not change and not grow. So we have a lot of things that are feeding us, into a much different reality. And there, and listen, any kind of relationship, especially marriages, right? When you share responsibilities, you share finances, you help. It's very scary to think about going out and doing it on your own, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's very real. All of these things are very, very real. Um, and so I take those things very seriously, especially in my work, right? And I work with people who, a good percentage of my population that I help are individuals who are super smart, super strong, super successful, right? And have a lot of complicated moving parts to their lives.
Mhm.
And there is a reason why it is hard for them to make a change, right? And it's
Mhm.
not because there's something wrong with them. It's actually because there is something so right about them that they know that they have an intuitive knowing that many people don't understand and can't see, that like to shift this little piece over here is going to cause a domino effect or a snowball effect into all of these other aspects of my life, that I don't want to hurt anyone, right? And I especially don't want to hurt myself. And it's not even about being committed to the suffering. It's about being committed to not wanting to cause any undue pain, right? There's something called um, leadership trauma, right?
Mm.
So we have leaders who are responsible for major corporations and organizations that employ anywhere from 15 to 50,000, right? And they know one of the reasons why they're in that position is because they have this gut instinct to know that every single decision that they make is going to have a ripple effect, and it's going to come back in some way into the community, the society, the business organization that they're there for. And so I really truly believe, as a soul to soul, that we can serve and be of service in any position that we have. But the most important thing is that every single step that we take in our own healing and growth and change and transformation to thriving in our life, that we do it with love and honor and truth and embodied wisdom. And if we haven't embodied the wisdom, then we're not ready to take the step, right? And so, in a world where I believe we should live and we can live very simply, we oversimplify, right, change. And we oversimplify how complicated things really have become in our world, right? And that even if we formulate and base a decision based off of what we see, it's not necessarily what the truth is of the circumstance. I mean, I live on the East Coast in the United States, right? So we're rich with a lot of colonial history, right? Which half of it's been manufactured, right? Like it's not even true. What we learned in our school books isn't even the truth. So if I were to base my decision making or my structures or my systems off of what we were told, it's not necessarily going to help going forward, right? So sometimes we have to sit with where we are and get to the point where we can understand that there's so much that we don't know. And when we can live in the unknown, then we're better. And we have the ability to actually create a greater element of safety, right, for ourselves and for the collective, right?
Yeah.
Um, so anyhow, I know that's a little bit of a soapbox, but I think it's just really important that we, I honor every single person who's going through whatever element of change it is. Somebody might say, oh, well, autoimmune disease is blah, blah, not a big deal. Wow, you could have just taken XYZ or done this or whatever, gone on disability or whatever. Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Right. But that wasn't my journey. And so I honor everyone where they are in their own journey, and their awakening is their awakening to their own truth. And part of that truth that they bring to us is going to be things that we don't see and we can't see right now, right?
Mhm.
So it provides us with a collective wisdom. So I'm just here cheering everyone on in their own growth, because every time that they release something that's not theirs, or they help to confront and become more aware and accept the disease of wherever the conflicts, in their own lives, and they release that, it it gives a greater wisdom to the earth, and that earth then knows how to support us better, right? And we get out of that collective paralysis. And I think that many of us are in a collective paralysis, right? We're living in a collective paralysis and survival mode, right?
Yeah.
And so um we can learn how to go slow when we want to go fast. We can learn how to go fast when we feel like we want to go slow. And everywhere we go, we just want to greet it with love, truth, and wisdom, and that's it, right?
Can you share? So I want to go back to what you were talking about a little bit, because it really deeply resonated with me. And you talked about maybe not the truth that we've
yeah.
been, and you also, in your workshop that you just did, you used some ancient storytelling. And I've heard you talk a little bit about divine feminine. This is something that's really speaking to me right now, that
Yeah.
I'm diving into. And that's part of the remembering for me. So can you share a little bit about how you use ancient storytelling and how to support a woman to embody the wisdom
Mm, mm,
so that
yeah.
she can know the truth, her truth, our truth collectively?
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm a studied mystic. So I love, and I'm a spiritualist. So I love studying things like religion, spirituality, and ancient mysticism. So, and in that it's so rich with history, right? And with that history is the intersect of things like the Quran or the Bible or, the Torah or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And all of those things are just a human way of relaying the ancient storytelling, right?
Mhm.
In ancient history. And if we really look at, and this is not about creating a polarizing effect at all. So when I talk about, first I'll dispel the myth. So empowered woman, I actually had a visceral response to the word empowered woman, right?
Okay.
Um, and and one of the reasons why is because when I think about empowered women, I mean, I was born in the 60s. And so at that time, women were burning their bras. They didn't even have the right to open up their own checking account unless they could prove that they were married,
Oh
right?
yeah,
You
I
had
know all about that.
right?
1974, the year
Yeah,
I was born. That was the year that a woman could apply to have a credit card in her own name without a male signature. No,
right.
I was absolutely astounded. 1988 was when a woman could apply for a business loan in her own name. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
could apply,
Yeah,
right? Could apply,
yeah,
but there weren't herds of women opening up their own checking account
right.
or applying for loans, because they were still living in a very oppressed situation, and they hadn't been able to sprout their seed enough through the soil, right? So when I hear empowered woman, I think a lot about the, kind of polarizing effect of the oppression, where women had to become very, very strong and very justifiably angry, and kind of were on the opposite end of the pole of the other side, which to me, it's the same thing, right? So we're repeating patterns and frequencies, right? So when I think about empowered women, I think about, kind of like feminism, gone wrong, right? Like women becoming very hard, women
Yes.
becoming very masculine.
Yes.
And, women are incredibly intelligent, right? And even in some of the most, divine spiritual masters and leaders will say that women are far more competent and capable than men in so many arenas, right? Because of their greater access to intuition, right? Not saying that men aren't intuitive, because they're very, very intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe as women, also as a sidebar, like we need to do better in our relationship with men, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this, because this is not about continuing to create some sort of division,
Yes.
selling against some sort of, negative thing with whatever the masculine does, but it's about talking about the truth, right? So we have to talk about the truth. And so really being an empowered woman is a woman who is in her power,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a woman who's in her power does not walk around wielding a sword and slashing and gashing everything that's in her way. A woman that's in her power is very much able to lean into her divine intuition and femininity,
Mm-hmm.
and the power that can be behind an ocean, right? Which is water, which is the divine essence of the feminine, right? The moon is the divine essence of the feminine. And so when I talk about empowered woman, it's not about, creating this division between women and men, or any identification between a masculine and feminine energy, right?
Yes.
But it's really about calling your power back. It's really about deconstructing those beliefs, right? And things that aren't true for yourself. So the ancient storytelling aspect, right, is then to look at, and first of all, I love to talk to the audience about who they recall is a strong feminine figure. And it was really fascinating, this last workshop that I did, because the one that I did prior to that, there were probably more people who were thinking about like Greek mythology, Hinduism, that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
but this group in particular, Ruth Ginsburg, Amelia Earhart,
Okay.
Mother Teresa, right? So, and I thought that's really interesting, right? That just that, so that just goes to show, and there's no right or wrong, on any of this. It's just like where we are and what we see and how we identify and whatever. And I thought Maya Angelou was another one. And so what I do in those moments is I take that and I say, okay, so what are the qualities that you really identify, that you see within yourself, or you'd like to embody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the things that are in the way to that? Right.
Yeah.
And so then from there, we can talk about some of the ancient mysticism, the storytelling, or we even recreate the story of what it might have been like for that young girl growing up.
Right.
Was it easy? Was their life easy? How could you imagine the parents were, right? If didn't read the, biography of Amelia Earhart, like, what would you have thought about her childhood, right? Or whatever. And so there are, if we look at some women like Cleopatra, for instance,
Okay.
definitely a very different snapshot of relationships intimate partner relationships alone, right? If we look at the intimate partner relationships that Cleopatra, had chosen, it's very different than what we're taught is the right relationship, right? But if Cleopatra didn't do what Cleopatra did, right, and lived, then we would not have had the ripple effect of all of that energy, and we wouldn't have had necessarily, some of the wars, some of the divisions, some of the coming together, some of the reshifting of the sands, so that's what I mean by the ancient storytelling. So I don't just sit there and spoon feed a story, because I actually don't believe that. I believe that's recreating some of what we've been fed that we need to do, right?
Yeah.
This is not about, I always say, like, we're not taking a test afterwards. There's no right or wrong answers. This is just about, like, speaking about something in someone, in an energy that you can conceptualize, right? That you can identify with, that you can relate to. And it's very interesting because, like, for instance, someone who might have related to Amelia Earhart, who was very strong, very much like a masculine energy in a lot of ways, right?
Right. Yeah.
That particular person was very emotional, right? Kind of announced before we even started, like, I'm crying already, right? And so
Yeah.
it's interesting how sometimes the thing that is one of our greatest strengths of being a highly sensitive person or having access to our emotions, we see as something that we don't want. And that goes back to that whole canceling ourselves out thing.
Yes.
I've worked with countless women who wish that they could have access to their emotions.
Wow.
Right. So, so it's an art to be able to hold space for each individual as unique as they are, and to speak into their souls and to allow their souls to speak, and then hear the humanness and the meaning and the dishonoring and the honoring, right, all in one. So to me, being an empowered woman is a woman who finds their just right spot with their own unique blend of masculine and feminine energy that is theirs. So when we're born, we're kind of like an open vessel, and the energies are poured into us, right? So and we find our own equilibrium within that. So it's not 50% feminine, 50% masculine. It's not, because we happen to identify as women, 80% feminine, 20% masculine, right? So for me, I have an aligned tendency, right? Aligned tendency, not wish, not want, not manufactured, not whatever, but an aligned tendency to have a much greater amount of feminine energy within me, masculine, right?
Right.
So another woman might have far more masculine energy than feminine. That doesn't mean I need to go tinkering around and change because mine is more, right? It just means that we find coherence, we find harmony with what is, and then we learn how to exist in the world and express ourselves in the world that way, right?
Authentically.
So, authentically, right?
Right.
And then realize that when we're in service to the collective, the energy is going to be different than when we're in service to relationship and service to ourselves and in service to our children and in service to our parents, and especially those parents who might have carried forward a huge amount of wounding and been paralyzed and stuck in their own energetic frequency for all of their lives, right? So it's to me, becoming an empowered woman is one where you can be a woman in a world that says that we have to kind of adhere to an old structure, a masculine structure. This is one of the reasons why there is a larger amount of fatalities and car crashes because you're a woman versus a man, because of the fact that we are literally living in a world that was designed for the physical structure and status and stature of a man, right?
Yes.
And so we get to recognize that and honor ourselves in that and give ourselves what we need, even though car manufacturing companies and all of the engineers who designed it said, this should be good enough, right?
Yeah.
We get to create great change that will help to keep us safe so that we can thrive in the world. And so we can look at it from so many different perspectives and levels and ways. But most important thing is that we can recognize the survival tools that we've had, which is people pleasing, perfectionism, overthinking, trying to control things that are out of our control, right? And
Codependency.
codependency and pushing through, right?
That's right. Forcing.
Things are our greatest barriers and stumbling blocks, right? So
Right.
we are not honoring our sacredness if we are doing that in any of those potential places in our lives.
Yes, because that energy is in direct conflict with what is natural of the feminine, which is soft, open, in flow, right? Powerful. I think that's another confusion. I know we have to wrap up, but that's been a confusion, right? That somehow being soft and open means that you're not strong and powerful. So I think it's just a new way that we're learning how to see things, is that it is strong and powerful and soft and open and gentle and in flow and living from our intuition. It's just foreign to the world that we have lived in. I could talk to you for so much longer because it's such a beautiful topic, but I would love to hear. So the title of my book and of the podcast is Born to Be All of Me. So what does that mean to you when you hear that? How does that resonate with you? And what does that mean to live a life where you are truly living who you were born to be, and all of you?
Mm-hmm. Well, the word me is very interesting, isn't it? If we even just look at that, who is me? Who is me? Right? Yes. I am. I am.
Yeah.
I am a child of God in the universe. I am light. I am love. I am peace. I am harmony. I am here to bring heaven on earth. I am who I am, and I am that I am today, and tomorrow it may be a little different. It may look a little different. And right now I know why I'm here. And so everything and anything else that falls outside of that just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe in, what we are all born for. Yeah.
To be in this present moment, who we are authentically.
Yeah.
Love, light, to give ourselves permission to have that change on any given day, in any given moment. But what I'm hearing you say is mostly to live your life in full authentic alignment in each present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
A witness and in your highest self. Right. And in a year from now, we can have another conversation, and my highest expression and your highest expression is going to be totally different. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And it happens in light speed.
Right.
And other times the shifting and the changing takes decades. Right. So it's but yeah, we are all born to be. We are, because we're here, because your audience can hear this conversation. Therefore you are, and you are worthy, and you are loved, and you are always held in the highest of regard, right? And you always have another chance to be better and better every day in every way.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sharon.
Oh, it
I
was.
love I love having this conversation with you. Where can people find you? And do you have anything coming up that you want to share about that
I
people
do.
can?
I do. I don't know when this is airing, but I'm doing right now a special pre-sale of my Empowered Women Collective Body Series. It's
Ooh,
a product that's coming out. It hasn't actually. So I had the first series group and the collective, and so I've digitized it so that people can do their own independent study with that of the master classes that we had and the work. And then I have a community that they will be able to have access to where they can share and talk to the other people who have already gone through it.
love
So
it.
I'm doing a special pre-sale. And so for whoever listens, I'll give a discount code for that because that's going to
Okay.
be a lot of fun.
Yes.
And they can find me on Instagram, Sharon Jean Land, my website, which is also Sharon Jean Land, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. I have playing around on TikTok. And yeah, and I love hearing from everyone. So I'd love to hear from them. And I also have a few free meditations, polyvagal regulation, a vagus nerve reset, which is really super important and helpful for getting
Yes,
today's times. So yeah.
definitely. Well, I will definitely add that in the show notes. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom and everything that you're doing in the world. I really honor you and am inspired by you. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for having me. It's been such a joy, and I agree. We could have talked for another 3 hours,
We'll do it
but
again sometime.
yeah. All right.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye, Sharon. Bye.
Bye.
That was so wonderful. Yeah, I definitely could have continued that conversation for a good long time. So thank you, friends, for spending this time with me and with Sharon. And I hope that you got something out of this. If you have any questions or comments, please, please, please reach out to me. If you found this episode to be helpful and inspiring in any way, please share it with a friend and have a beautiful day. Until next time.